Hello everyone, I'm meteorologist Charlie Ironmonger. Thank you so much for joining me today for another edition of Charlie Loves Science. And today we are focused on a new report released by the Smithsonian Institute about the massive marine heat wave that claimed the lives of about 15% of the world's coral between 2014 and 2017. Again, this was a massive event that has led to, again, big economic hits to industries that rely on coral reefs for product development, protection, food, you name it. But before we get in, of course, to the nitty-gritty details, first, obviously, we can talk about what coral truly is. Obviously, it is something that we don't have a lot of here in eastern North Carolina's coast, but in order to get the types of fish that we have here in eastern North Carolina, coral reefs do play a role, as they are nurseries for smaller fish that again can then grow up into migrating fish species that do pass by the North Carolina coastline. So let's talk about it. Healthy coral. It's made up of essentially two organisms, not just one, it's two. It's a symbiotic relationship between a jellyfish-like animal and algae that grows within the animal's tissue. The algae uses photosynthesis to get energy from the sun, and the animal then benefits from that energy gained from the algae. Now, it's a very delicate balance. The algae gets protection from the coral animal that secretes a calcium carbonate that forms their hard, rigid structures, but they are very heat tolerant, the animals, the coral itself. And as heat starts to build, well, the coral gets stressed out. It's so stressed out that it expels the algae and expels its food source, obviously then putting the coral under even more stress. Not only is it stressed because of the heat, but now with a reduced food intake, its growth is severely limited. And this is called the process of coral bleaching. And if that high heat level stays high, the animal, the coral, will expel all of its algae. The algae gives it that pigmentation, and with that, the coral turns white. And if it stays without algae in it, it will die and it will perish. Again, it leaves it more vulnerable to disease and death. So that's kind of a basic breakdown of how coral bleaching occurs. Now, over that 2014 to 2017 time period, we saw sea surface temperatures rise to about over 7 degrees Fahrenheit above normal in some instances. That is a large amount of heat. And that, again, can lead to very drastic changes in coral ecosystems. So here is a look again at healthy coral. This is what a nice coral healthy reef looks like. This is what we all hope to see whenever we go to those coral reefs, and whether it's in the Caribbean, off of Florida, Hawaii, or obviously Australia with the Great Barrier Reef has a big one. But too much heat turns it into a desolate area like this. Very few fish can survive, and as you can see, the coral, just about all of the coral, has turned white. But we need the coral to stay alive. It helps industries across society, not just in the U.S., but across the world. Coastal tourism is one of the bigger beneficiaries of coastal reefs. And then we also have fisheries, food sources. Many developing countries around Indonesia rely on coastal coral reefs to provide, again, food sources. And then we also have the development of medicine. Pharmaceutical companies pay a lot of money to develop some of the chemical compounds found in species that live on coral reefs and only on coral reefs. So if you're wondering, well, how did some of those big pharmaceutical companies come up with the drugs they are coming up with? You can trace many of them back to, again, species along coral reefs that, again, have prompted those advancements in medical science. And we also have coastline protection. This is a big one for coastal communities that do have rough weather. Obviously, we are well aware of that here in eastern North Carolina, but the coastline protection is a really, really big part of maintaining resiliency when those big storms hit. Those coral reefs help slow down waves and storm surge, which reduces flooding around areas that are surrounded by coral reefs. So it does a lot. Coral reefs account for around $9.8 trillion in economic benefits around the world annually. That is a ton of money, and it is one that we can't afford to lose. Now, unfortunately, we are currently experiencing another global marine heat wave. One, unfortunately, that right now looks like it is actually going to be worse than the 2014 to 2017 marine heat wave, and the current one has been ongoing since 2023. To give you guys some numbers, if the oceans did not absorb the heat and they were kept at a standard air temperature, if they didn't have that heat absorption ability, we would be looking at air temperatures around the globe upwards around 120 to 125 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're not seeing those numbers, even though we have seen over the past 10 years an increase year by year of global average air temperatures, again, highlighting climate change. But it's not just the air that is warming up. It is the entire world, especially, again, the oceans that are absorbing a lot of that heat. And unfortunately, again, scientists are pointing to this next, the current global marine heat wave. It is being titled as the fourth global marine heat wave. It is now looking like it is going to be worse than the previous one, the third one. And I want to read a quote from Scott Heron, a professor of physics at James Cook University. He said, quote, "Around half of reef locations affected by bleaching level heat stress were exposed twice or more during that 3-year event from 2014 to 2017, often with devastating consequences. That included back-to-back events on Australia's Great Barrier Reef. We are seeing that reefs don't have time to recover properly before the next bleaching event occurs, and that is leading to more coral mortality and more deaths across those ecosystems." Again, the hope is that we can continue to try to work towards lowering global air temperatures, but for now, it looks like, again, we are going to be seeing more death occur across coral reefs over the next few years based on the current marine heat wave that is happening, and that is not good news for humanity. So, what can you do at home? Try to limit your use of energy. Try to limit the amount of gas you burn on a daily basis. Those are great ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in eastern North Carolina, but around the world. And that is, again, a big cause of the global coral bleaching impacts and events that, again, are becoming more and more common. It is something, again, like coral ecosystems are something that the humans of this earth cannot afford to lose. Obviously, I'm in that boat as well. Hopefully, again, this didn't bum you guys out too much. We will have more news and weather coming up at 3 o'clock, but that does it for today's Charlie Loves Science segment. I want to, again, draw attention to this because it is not being talked about enough, and it's something, again, that will end up impacting you either today, tomorrow, or sometime down the line, and it's an effect that is currently not a good one. We'll see you guys back here for more news and weather coming up at 3 o'clock.